So hello everyone again. As Olena already introduced me, I'm Arnika Hryszko. Some of you may know me from some conferences and meetups when I already gave my presentations. And why the diary? I have 10 years. Actually, this year is 10 years of experience as a QA tester and all those different positions, same stuff. And I wanted to share a bit about my experience. And first, because I already gave this presentation in Warsaw at the IT Academic Days, it was meant for students to show them, maybe encourage them to become testers, become quality assurance, and to give them ideas what tester can do, what are the possibilities for a tester and for his career. And it was meant for the wannabes, for the beginners only. But then I was talking to people and they said, but I'm already a tester for like 5 years and I already do not know this different kind of paths. My company is not allowing me to develop myself. So also the idea behind my presentation is to give you the idea and the message that there is a lot of possibilities and go and use it if you want, of course. So as I already said, I started 10 years ago. And this was long time ago, and testers were perceived like that back then. It was not to letting the user click all the stuff. It's the tester that is going through all the application, clicking all the stuff, just to make sure that everything is working. And sorry, for quite a few years, I was treated like that. I'm just a clicking monkey, and I'm not able to do anything more. Unless I graduated computer science at the Polytechnic, so I have some knowledge and I can do more. And I tried to develop myself because company was not aware what are the options and share the knowledge, gather the knowledge and doing more and more, not to be this monkey. And I also I know people that even right now are working like 5 years and still are just clicking monkey, and I encourage all of them to see the world, see all the options, not only to be this kind of monkey. And what's behind this? Why it's perceived like that? What are the options? So first, one usual misconception and misunderstanding about testing, it's mostly not by testers themselves, but by the companies, that managers, that testing QA is actually the same stuff. It's just testing, clicking, not that many other things, but actually it's much more. Probably it's obvious to some of you that testing is only part of the quality assurance. Quality assurance is a lot wider expression, a lot wider field, and you can do a lot more, and somewhere in between there is quality control, right now mostly connected to the DevOps and TestOps thingies. And so I was talking about the path of tester. So usually in the also my company, it looks something like this. You can be tester, manual or automation tester, do the test. Then if you were automation tester, you are becoming developer, maybe architect. You can move to the business analyst if you were working with the specification, or you are going to the leadership path, so becoming test manager, project manager, something like that. And when I see most of the career paths at the companies, it look like that. But from the testers and quality assurance perspective, it's a bit different. At one conference, we had this discussion panel when the testers decided how it should look like. And it looked like this. I know it's a lot of shortcuts and abbreviations, so it's not much to explain, but I just wanted to show you this picture to show that there is not like strict way, not just becoming someone else besides being tester to develop yourself. You can be like going in the UX to agile, being PM, but you can go into tech, be expert at some kind of technology. You can be TL. There's many options, and it should look like this in the diamond model, some other, not just becoming someone else, not the tester. People are sometimes asking me, like, 10 years and still tester, why not developer, business analyst? Because I like this job. There is so much to do. Why become someone else? I wanted to be a tester from the beginning. So you can see there is a lot of options. So what are some of those options? I want to explain more. There is, of course, security testing. Sorry for a second. This one is becoming more and more popular, especially right now, when we will have this GDPR. Probably some of you heard the abbreviation. It's about the European Union law about protecting the data. Everyone heard it, and at almost all companies, we are now wondering what to do with it, how to test it, how make sure that your data is secure. And it's part of security testing. It's not only to managers or some configuration people to make sure that it will be secure. There is whole field that's called security testing that you can specialize in. There are companies that are specialists. And what is this security testing? It's making sure something won't get broken by someone else before they do. So you can just hack, broke, and do everything with your software before someone else. Before, like, there was a lot of issues, a lot of situation and affairs about the data leakage from the Facebook, from all their stuff. And why? Not enough security testing. Usually at the companies there is not there won't be sections with testers that are specialized with security. Mostly there are audits or something like that, but this is changing mostly to the GDPR because every company has to make sure that their data is secure. So as a tester, we can develop in this field and be a security tester and hack and do fun stuff and be this guy in the hood that is trying to break things. What is else? There is something called UX that is also often misunderstood because when people hear that tester is making sure of UX and working with that, they think that tester is making sure that the web page is not looking like this. But actually, it's misconception because this, so look of this page, is a part of the UX. So there is UI, so the interface, the things how they look, and there is whole field called UX, so user experience. And experience is not only the look, there is a lot of research and stuff. There are specialists in that field that are making sure of the UX. But I am saying that are specialists, so what about testers? Testers can also be a part in those researchers, be specialized in the UX field. One way is to be part of an end-user study. End-user study is to get to know your user because all you do, your hardware, software, whatever, the web pages are for the users. And you have to know the user to know what she expects to adjust your system to the user. Dzień dobry. So you have a lot of options you can do to know the user. There are interviews, so qualitative data. You just interview your user, asking a lot of questions, and most important, the follow-up questions. Someone says that he's doing something like this in your application. So you are asking next, why you are doing that? Why not in the other place? So you have a lot of deep insight about the behavior of the user. There are also surveys. Probably most of you was doing something of the web page and the survey appeared. Well, how do you like our web page? And most of you just ignore it. Me too. But it is also to get to know you, to adjust their web page, their services to you. There are also focus groups when you can get to know people not face to face with one-on-one, but with many people and discuss. And you gather a lot of data, a lot of information about people perception, opinions, beliefs, how they work with your system, and a lot of different data. And what can you do with that? The first thing is to create persona. Persona is not it's not real. Her name is not Jacqueline. It's just some stock photo with just made up name. But the thing is, when you gather all those ideas, you make groups of them and create persona. So the common goals, preferences for some kind of group of people. And the purpose is to have some representation, not, okay, focus group 1 decided to do something. No, we have Jacqueline. his representative persona of this focus group that has some preferences, so working tasks, so frustration, and we can work plan according what the persona is representing. So adjust our system to this persona. And to get also more information, we can create, based off interviews, surveys, we can create user journey. So the whole workflow, how someone is working with your application, what he, she is doing in that time. And why at one project, we as a testers started to be part of this, because it started that business analysts were working on that end user studies and creating personas, user journeys, and we as a testers in QAs saw only the outcome, so only the specification without that. And one day I was doing some tests and it stopped, my automation test stopped because there was new window and it looked like that. And I was terrified. For me, it looked like just, why it's so big? It's like, it's scary. I don't like this. So I reported a bug, of course. And the analyst said, no, it's as designed. So I went to the business analyst. How it can be designed like that? It's awful. And then she explained that is because when they created the user journey, it turns out that this is displayed in the corner of the room, and the guy or the girl is working here. There is this big screen when something is happening, and the person is doing something else. And when previously it was like small window, they didn't know that something happened, that something is wrong. So they wanted to have this big, awful screen to know, standing here, that something's wrong. They have to take care of it. So from this point of time, we as a QAs and also some developers started to be part of those studies to get to know, to prepare our test cases, our scenarios to the user. So we were already adjusted during the development phase to the user, not getting the support cases after it was released to the production, that there is something wrong. So what's more, also the very on-time topic, like there is Internet of Things, we have a lot of software, everything is connected to internet, we can hack to these things, we can do a lot of things with those things, and someone has to test it. So we can test washing wardrobes. We can test smart TVs that can hear us or not, because we can like record our favorite show when we are at the IT Talk meetup and check on the phone that it's working or not. We can also program and work with the dishwasher, and it can be fun. Like one small story from my friends' work, they were testing the dishwashers. And there was this new option that there is, when there is too much foam, they get the message on their smartphone that there is too much foam, something is wrong, and you have to take care of it. So they put the whole package of like tablets to the washing, the Tide Pods, and went to do something else, and was waiting for the message to appear on their smartphone. Nothing happened, so they work and work, and after an hour got back to the room, and it was like foam party, the piano party, because whole room was filled with that foam. The sensor didn't work. So it can be fun, like it was said at the beginning, testing is not boring. Testing can be fun, and it can be mostly fun when we are working with those hardware systems. And sometimes it can start as a boring something. Because at my work we had this panel with a lot of LEDs, and some of them, as you can see here, was lightened or not, and like sitting and watching all this and seeing if it's lightened up or not, boring, right? So we come up with this one simple thing, that camera was pointed at this, and we checked two attributes, the position and the color that is displayed. So I don't know if you can see that, but there will be finger, and you know you can see that something is on and this is changing. So the camera is observing, and when the finger is here, so it's off, this is changed. So tester won't have to sit and see all those lights. You can check it by the simple program. It was like 10 lines of C++ code. Very simple and isn't the work, and it was fun. And then it was used also in other project for some other thing because it was very simple and could be put anywhere. So isn't our life is also the thing we do often, not to get bored, to have this like very, very boring task watching the lights. And one of those things was also, this is PDA, some kind of equipment used at the factory. So it is used by worker with the like hard gloves. You have to push very hard to use it, but it's made for those people. And also the software on this is very limited, so you cannot just connect via Appium or something like this to test it remotely, because it is not allowing you. So we, as a testers, built a robot. It's very simple and ugly, because it was not made by some engineers, yes, but not robotic, scientific, special people. And how does it look? Oh, what the music? It was something like that. The simple robot with few mechanisms that was clicking for us. And then what was on this was displayed on computer, and on computer we could check if it's working or not. So just simple, ugly robot. Isn't our work not making our work boring? And even it was fun to program this, because then at some of interviews people were saying, oh, at our job we are programming robots, because we were. It's simple, but still is a robot. So it was so much fun and so easy in our work that started to be applied for 3 different approaches, and now still ugly, but still working and fastens our work a bit, because it's clicking overnight, not with the tester that is bored and becoming the very unhappy tester. So we also have kind of new field. I was talking broadly about this at the test fest. It's model-based testing. This actually is kind of controversial because some people think that above automated test and the next step in evolution of testing is model-based testing. Some people disagree, that is only a kind of niche. And what is this about? It's a new skill you have to gain to be master of it. And the idea behind it is you create model of a system you are supposed to test and create test cases out of this model. So not reading the specification, create and writing step by step all your tests, but they are created automatically by the model. There is a lot of tools, so new set of tools you have to get to know, the skills, how to model the system to get this automated. The idea and the perfect idea behind is that you model only the system, create only the model, then the test cases are generated automatically and then executed automatically. It's, as far as I know, no company yet got to this point, but I know that this approach is widely used in Microsoft. So how the model could look like, for example, we have this plugin to the Eclipse that is called GraphWalker. So this is the model. This is the model of only one workflow. So starting the browser, and entering some URL and looking at the results. So you have to create all those steps, describe what's the description, what's the expected result of it, and then run it, and the test will be executed. And when you run this, the outcome is this kind of Excel. This that you have all those steps, so when you can put result and stuff. That looks simple because it's a simple tool. There are more advanced one, but paid ones, that can export those test cases not to Excel but to the test link or Jira or some other kind of repository. I started to work on that, but really the modeling part, so the step when you do the model is complicated and you have to have a lot of knowledge and skills to do that. But since it's gaining a lot of funds and people who want to work like that, like Microsoft, so like big player, I think it can be a way that people can start to develop themselves and be experts at model-based testing. And maybe it's a way for them to be not business analyst or developer, just a tester that is expert in the model-based testing. As I already said, that we like to ease in our job, not to get bored. So to do our job, we have a lot of tools. When I was starting those 10 years ago, there were some kind of tools to do the job easier, but not a lot of them. And now, even it is hard to decide what to use. You have to do this research, study, proof of concept, if this tool is appropriate for you. Some of them, that's just simple examples, are like at my job. I got to the project and people said that we just started to build that system. We have some kind of specification, API, the interface will be there in a half year. So test it. So then I started to look and did my research, and it turns out that there is a lot of great tools. One of them is SoapUI that allows me to test without the interface. So how does it look? For example, it's going to be vacation, summertime soon. We are looking for a tent. When we're looking for a tent on this page, there is a lot of attributes you can use, and all of them are put here in the URL. So when you copy it and put here, automatically all of these attributes that were set on interface are recognized here. And then when you send it to this page, so to the Allegro page, you get the response. This is this page, but without the interface. So you can directly speak with the API, the something that is one level below the interface. And this can be also used in the security testing. Like my friend, just for fun, so that when he's at the bookstore and has the coupon for 10% discount, and it was also in the URL. So just for fun, he tried with this, but put 100% discount, and it worked. He didn't bought it, just took the screen and wrote to this bookstore and got this book for free. And they thanked him a lot, and now it's fixed. You cannot do like that. But it's a way to security testing, to test some kind of it, to hacks. You can do it, this is open source, so it's for free. And you can try it yourself with different pages. Sometimes the things in URL are hidden, but not always. Then you can play and see how it goes. So another thing that it's commonly known that like what can be automated, the big forms, like filling all of that took me 15 minutes and it was not real data. And imagine you have a lot of different parameters you have to put here. So putting it manually 100 times, few days. So you have this very simple as it turned out at my previous presentation, not supported anymore in the newest Firefox, the Selenium IDE, that you can record what you put there and just click, and now everything is filled. And then you are just changing those things, saving them, and just put it automatically, and then only few seconds instead of few days. So again, not make this boring stuff. You have a lot of other options not to get bored. The one also I would like to show you is the validation page. Most things here right now, most systems are web pages. And you have to validate it due to HTML, CSS, and stuff. And you have those pages that can do it for you. I checked data art page. It has 8,000 errors. And with this page, you get a list on what sub-pages they were. When you click on the what's exact error, here is what was the problem. And sometimes, not here, there is also suggestion, how can you fix it? So just simple, it took like half a minute to validate whole with all sub-pages, whole the page, and then you go just through the result and see what are the outcomes and what can you do with that. Speaking of tools, their future is here, as some conference said. And we have machine learning and AI that can help us testing. One of those things that can help us is prediction, the defect prediction. The very simple way to describe how it is working, what is idea behind it, is that we have data describing old elements. In this case, is source code. We have source code that is described by metrics. And those metrics with this code is put in an AI, in some kind of model, and it's the AI is learning and then we are feeding the AI with the new code, and it can predict if this code will have some problems, because the old one was connected if this code with those metrics caused some kind of issues, some kind of bugs, and if new code is similar to the old one, has similar metrics, the prediction can be that those parts of code will cause problems. And the outcome of that is something like this. Not very informative, I know. But the most important information, this is one file, one class of a code. And here is information that there will be problems. There is one. For some other, there will be 0, that won't be problems or not that many problems. And what can testers gain out of that? Tester can have something like this. So the source code, one line of here is line here. So this translated to the function in the system. So here we have information that search function and editor will cause a problem. The new editor, not already existing. And we know that those functions are covered with those test cases just written. And in case that we don't have enough time for testing, very common, and we have to prioritize our test cases. So thanks to that, we know that these parts of our system will be more troublesome. So we can prioritize them first, and those that we know because of the prediction that are not very likely to be troublesome and to cause the issues, the defects, we can just test less or not at all. So tools, but also we have these very wide and very important things in testing that's called exploratory testing. We have a lot of people that said that this is the only real testing, the rest is just developing the programmer stuff. And the exploratory is very important. There are special workshops how to do exploratory testing, because it's not like many people see exploratory testing like this monkey. So just have to click. But it's not exactly, it's not mindless clicking. You have to very dig deep inside the application, made up really different scenarios, maybe strange ones. And sometimes then you report a bug about after some exploratory and finding the specific scenario with a bug, that this is not production scenario. But I've been there. Every time I reported something and they said not production scenario, user won't do that, user will do that for sure. So it's very important to report everything you think that will cause a problem, because usually it will. And as I said at the beginning, the quality assurance is much wider than testing, and quality assurance specialist is what I do right now. So I'm making sure that whole the development process is according to the quality rules, not only the testing, not that we have the ready system and just test it at the beginning. I'm and other quality assurance specialists are making sure that from the very beginning, from the working with the user requirements, from the specification writing, from the implementation, the quality is assured in all those steps, and also in the maintenance steps, maintenance time. It's also with the right procedures, right approach, and I assure that everything is on place, and coach, train other people to have the quality approach in all things they do. So, as I said, there is a lot of paths and possibilities for the tester. So not to get caught yourself just being the clicking monkey. I encourage you to explore those possibilities and not to do only one stuff to get bored to death by being tester. So, it's all from me. Are there any questions? No? I will be here. Wait. You have to wait for the microphone.
1, 2, 3. Thank you, Arnika, for your speech and report. It was so interesting and exciting. And please describe your typical day.
Right now.
Working day as QA.
I can describe you 2 days, because when I was on the project and now when I moved to the advisory department, because when I was still at the project, it's also to show you that it's not just one task you do. So in my project, we had those automated tests that was running overnight because we had continuous integration. The new build was built during the night, and then the automation tests were started. So when I was going to starting the work, I had my coffee and the results of the automated test that was run overnight. And okay, the tests are done by the system, by the tool for you, but you have to analyze the result, because something is red, something was wrong, and why? Because something was changed and your tests are not adjusted to it, or something was changed and it caused a bug. So the analysis of that, it's like 1.5 hours, 2 hours sometimes for those tests, and it is one task. Then I sometimes had meetings with developers and business analysts to review new requirements, new feature, and to decide what will be the best approach, how to test it, how to develop it, to decide not to split it in the silos. So business analyst is working, then developer, then testers, to work together from the beginning and to decide how to do this kind of feature. So then developer can already start writing the code according to our agreement, and I can start to write test cases. So after the meeting, I'm writing those new test cases. And then sometimes user studies or bug retest if I had the report that after the new build overnight, there are some bug fixes, so I have to retest them. So it was my day when I was on the project. Then I moved to the advisory section. It's called Test Center of Excellence in our company. So mostly I check first if there are some support cases, but not from the production, but from the projects. That some projects has issues with their automated test or with their process, and want to someone to advise them, someone on the senior level, to help them how to do their testing. For example, recently I'm helping one guy that became test manager. He has 4 years of experience and is just beginning to be a test manager. So I was helping him to writing test plan according to all the best practices. And then sometimes writing, because we are also developing this wiki page for the testers in the company, so I'm writing article for them or finding new interesting stuff to send them, and meetings with people and helping them. Like, Scandinavian companies like to have meetings. What else? If not, I will be there. You can ask, not in front of a camera, but in private also, or write me a mail. I will respond probably in one day. If no more questions, thank you very much.
Michael, everything ready? Okay, great. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Kosma Baniewicz. I'm a QA engineer here in DataArt. Like Lena said, for the last 9 months, I'm working in the banking application project. Before, I also worked in the company that is working mostly on the banking applications. And I worked for HSBC Bank and also for Industrial Commercial Bank of China. That were the two biggest projects that I worked. The topic of the presentation will be banking application testing, but let's start with some small intro. If you are becoming the tester, if you start your road as a tester, you are this happy guy. So you just started, you are working in the IT, you have your first money, you are happy, but you know nothing, just know. Why? Because when you started, everybody wants to help you, you are learning new things, you wrote your first test case. Everything is awesome, right? There is a problem. You are like this dog after 2 sprints. You don't have any idea what you are doing. The guy is saying to you, your test case is crap, this is not working, and if this is a banking application, you have also a lot of knowledge to come to you. So, after some time, you will become this. You will be a happy panda that will find his part of life, his part of application. You will know that, you will be happy, and you will never ever want to give that ball away. Never. Why? Because if you will ever give that ball away, it may be you will become this. You will just be angry, and you will want to switch a company. Okay, this is the intro. What is the plan for the presentation? I will talk a bit about the basic terms. I will talk about these 3 magic letters that are there. AML. I will show you some examples and also point a few things about testing of the banking application. And at last, we'll also describe these 3 magical letters and one number, PSD2. Okay. Mostly when somebody asks me about how it is testing the banking applications, because she or he is afraid. Why? I don't know the terms. I don't know what the hell is, what you are testing. This must be complicated. Why? Because it's connected to a bank. It's connected to money that we all love, and also to things that we hate, which is law. Taxes, stuff like that. We don't like it. So, we are afraid. But I always say that, almost all these basic terms, by heart or not by the definition. So let's look over the definition for these terms. What is a money? Everybody knows, yeah? But by definition, it's an item or verifiable record that is generally accepted as payment for goods and services. It can be a note, it can be a coin, sometimes it has an equivalent in gold. Okay, now we know what it is. But now, mostly, it is just a record, visible only somewhere in database, right? You don't get your money to hand. You get your money to the account. That's why it's so important in case of testing of banking applications. One small thing. Doing research for this application, I found really that this $100 trillion Zimbabwean note is really in the world and is costing like $200 just because, everybody wants to have something like that. Okay, currency. What is currency? System of a money, monetary units that is in common use, especially for a nation. Most well-known are euro, US dollar, British pound, and 4th one. Anybody know what is this? RMB? Anybody? You should probably learn that. That is the yuan, so the Chinese currency. That is the shortcut for it. We are trading this in specific rates of one to another based on the on how wealthy is this country, what happens with the country in the last, I don't know, few years. That's from the ratio are coming on. But one of very funny fact is that some countries have 2 currencies. One of them is Cuba, which has national currency, which when you go to Cuba, you will exchange your dollars to this currency, but you also can change it to the Cuba convertible peso, which is worth only 1 of 25 of this first one. So, not so valuable. When you will ever go to Cuba, remember about that, because prices in the Cuba convertible peso are much lower. Just a tip. Okay, we have a bank account. Everybody has these payments going to the bank account. What is a bank account by definition? is a financial account maintained by a financial institution for a customer or company. We have a different types of account. We have our own personal. If you are on the B2B contract, you probably have a company account because you have some extra things. Debit account, credit account, boring stuff. This one is nice. Numerical account. This is a very special kind of account which is only available in Switzerland and in Austria. What is special about that? You don't have your name and surname anywhere on the card when the bank is booking you the account. You only have the numerical number. Why? Because you have a lot of money, you are rich, you can pay for that. Why? Because cost of that account is $100,000 at least, and you pay about $1,000 each year for having this account. Quite a lot of money if you are not a rich guy. Okay, loan. So sometimes you have to lend your money from your grandma or from mom. What is the by definition? Lending of money from one individual, organization or entity to another organization or entity or institution. What is most important? Must be provided with promissory notes. So you must have a deal. What will be the indicative rates? What will be the data for that? Stuff like that. Interest rates must be agreed for the period of loan. That is what you must know. Size looks sometimes like that, yeah? If you have a fiancé or something like that. Probably you know the story about that. Okay, interest rates. This is the amount of interest due per period. In example, a year, a month, a week maybe, in parabanks or cases like that. As a proportion of the amount lent, deposited or borrowed. What is important in that case? Countries have their maximum values of these ratios that have to be booked. They are different for types of legal entities because the interest rates can be different for a company or for the normal citizen. Okay. One of most complicated topic, it's in basic terms entity. It's something that exists as itself as a subject or object. Sometimes, hear this all nonsense about is a dolphin really almost a human or it's not a human. This is the case about that. So sometimes the guy from the law wants to know if you can, have a dolphin open the account for you. Most often, just to show you how many you can spot when you are testing a banking application is this list. This is real one from one of application I was testing. This is just of the group of legal entities that can you spot on when you are a banker. You have because of these names, other stuff are coming other complicated deals between a bank and this company. Because, in example, brokers have to have a special license, have to have different documentation, etc., etc. Okay. We already talked banking, but it should be, to be honest, should be financial institution. Why? Because banks are the most known financial institutions. We have also other ones. Stock exchange. We know that. Giełda papierów wartościowych, for example. Forexes. We always see these commercials that earn 5,000 zloty every month just to use as this guy. Forexes. National Bank. A different type of a bank a bit. In example, it's a Narodowy Bank Polski. Hedge funds. When you want to invest. Large part just for OC, insurance companies. How many of them is there? A lot. Credit rating agencies also needed. Also different type of financial institution. Okay, we gone through the basic terms, right? We probably should know two more. One of them is derivatives. In Polish it will be instrument finansowy, just for your knowledge. Derivatives are contracts between two parties that specify conditions under which payments are to be made between the parties. Okay, definition, nothing important here. We just need to remember that there are two groups of derivative contracts. One of them is privately traded over the counter. Second is exchange traded derivatives. Why I'm talking about that? Because of, I forgot about this. One of the oldest derivatives that were invented were by the Japanese guy, and they were about the rice futures. So the guy was paying in the rice to the guy, but he was making a bet, to be honest, with the bank, how much he will get the rice in the next year because of the weather, because of the war, because of the, soil, how it will change. he will just making a bet that in the next year I will have this money, this much rise, and they will be paying him in this year based on the future. That is a derivative. Okay, I already told you that we have the two groups. This table is very important. Why? This is showing just how many different derivatives are on the stock. They are traded differently, they are counted differently, the taxes for them are different, all of this different. This is just an example of the stuff. Sometimes you have to learn about one of them if you are doing over the application. Sometimes you must know at least all of that, just to know that there is something like that, and this can have, some impact on your testing. Okay, this is a nice shortcut. KYC. It means know your customer. It's a process in which financial institution is identifying and verifying the identity of its clients. There are differences all over the world. In some countries, you can do it by, I don't know, just going to a shop and saying, I'm the guy, have my one ID, you have open account, you have a credit for 1 million. In other companies, you have to provide your mom's signature, your dad, your all, I don't know, relatives with you, and you can then open the account. Okay, but if you are a big company, or you are the large customer, and you, I don't know, have 20 million bucks in your pocket, and you want to open a special account, you have to be going by the enhanced due diligence, which is a bit, upper level of KYC. Why you want to do that? You don't want to be surprised like these guys in the Matrix, that they see the weapon and, oh, it's already done. Okay, now it's time for a bit of a charade. IML is just a shortcut, and I will just show you a picture of 4 different persons. First of all, Mr. Messi. Second of all, here it's Mr. DiCaprio playing the role in the world of the Wolf from Wall Street. Breaking Bad, probably everybody know, the meth dealers. And this nice guy, Kim Jong-un from North Korea. What they have in common? Money laundering. Why? Because this is against this kind of the guys. So money laundering is the act which you have a money, but they come from you from crimes, or you don't, you just got them like shady, and you just want them to be legitimate assets. You can do it in many different ways. You probably watch the movies, you know all the stuff about them, won't talk much about that. Main points are money laundering from crimes, terrorism financing, evasion of international sanctions, and not by definition at all, but also included here, avoiding taxes. We don't want to pay taxes, so that's why it's also there. Okay, because the money laundering is becoming bigger and bigger problem in case of the banking, in case of the nations, in case of the 9/11, all the stuff like that. In 1989, the G7 group, so the 7 richest countries in the world, thought about it and proclaimed something which is called Financial Action Task Force on Money Laundering. This is the logo. And after 9/11, the mandate was much more expanded to include the terrorist financing. So they have like the right to look over your finances if they think you are a terrorist sympathetic. One thing that they also were founding, and they probably are most well known, is the FATF blacklist. This list is the list of the countries that your country, your bank, or your financial institution shouldn't trade off or have to report the bigger reports when it's trading about with this country. List of this country in June 2000 looked like this. 15 countries, including Dominica, Liechtenstein, Marshall Islands. So the countries which are called as the heaven for taxes. Now, in February 2016, it's only 2 countries. It's Iran and North Korea, for reasons that are probably obvious. Okay. Most well-known legal acts of anti-money laundering is the Bank Secrecy Act, which is USA. And after the whole Nixon gates, all the stuff which was there, the Kennedy cases, they come to the mind that mafia maybe is making too big money, we have to limit them. They done this Bank Secrecy Act, and okay, we will start with that. Then come one of the most important dates in history of banking, which is 9/11, attack on World Trade Center. Why? Because after that, everybody started to find the laws against the money laundering. One of them was Patriot Act, which was really fast in the USA. Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorist Financing Act 2006 Australia. Why it is mentioned here? Because Australia thought about it and said, we will not making the law, you know, like over the 15,000 euros, the bank account of 20. We will just take care of every transaction ever made in Australia has to be recorded. So they have the biggest record of about that. Every transaction is noted there. In Europe, we have already the fourth one, which is called fourth anti-money laundering resources. Stuff like that, yeah, we are loving the politics for that. But this is very important because when it's signed, it has to become, and when it's becoming a law, banks have to obey for that. So they have to change their applications. Okay, 2008, also important date. Not long ago, yeah, 10 years ago. Financial crisis. It come, unfortunately, that big that it struck whole world, and it was even bigger in some terms than the Black Friday. Okay, why it's important? Because every bank now had to face a different acts all over the world about their finances, their clients. Every financial institution had to change their rules. One of the reasons for that was the Dodd-Frank. This is the name of the act in United States. Federal law signed in 2010, the major regulation on the financial industry in USA, which changed almost everything there, created the two new offices and also the Financial Stability Oversight Council, which is now telling what to do to the banks. These two guys were the guys responsible for that, and bankers don't like them. Just don't. But Volcker is the guy that they hate. Why? Because this was a part of the Dodd-Frank Act, and it was implemented on 10th December 2013, but there was so much fights between banks and federal that it came in the law after 2015. They had to change what? The number of their speculative investments and their liquid investments. So they kind of the derivatives that I showed already, they had to switch them to other financial institutions, to other financial things that they have to take care and, you know, make our money bigger. For them, it was a problem because these liquid investments were the money that they, you know, it was the biggest money for them. Now they have to take care of that, make it smaller, invest only few percent of their money they're making every year. And this is the guy that they hate at all. Okay, we're in Europe, we don't want to be worse, so we have our own regulation for over-the-counter derivatives that I already spoke of. They came into effect on 2013, and the role is also preventing in the future financial system collapse. What is important for a tester here? Just to point you out. We have to now have 26 fields to fill in a report. Now it's 59 fields of data. So what Arnika showed, this whole, you know, report is now have to be filled every time you are booking the client or you have making a transaction. It has to be done. Nightmare for testers. But that is not the end. We also have the IASCO, International Organization of Securities Commissions. They had headquarters in Madrid. They are taking care of the Americas and also Europe because of Spain, had the colonies, stuff like that. They also have their own regulations. And because they are connected with the G20 group, so 20 richest countries in the world, it also has to be something different. New reports, new stuff for us to test. Okay, guys from Asia Pacific region, they also don't want to be, you know, left alone. We want to have our own things. And because they don't have a big organization like us, Europe, so European Union, they have their own acts. There are financial institutions in Singapore, Japan, Hong Kong, and Australia, so most important in this part of the world. And they have their own due diligence documents for OTC derivatives. And also one of the documents that I want to speak to you about, and I was testing, was a very specific from Hong Kong, which is called Refresh Case Act. It's just a law, one of the many that is there, that each time a broker has a license, he has to repeat his exam after 3 years. So after 3 years, you have to have in the system information that if this guy come with this license to you back or not. If not, Probably you have delayed him from the system, or I don't know, just close his deals. So quite big stuff also to test and also to implement. Okay, we have these 5 acts here, .frank, Volker, Emir, Ayasko, and APEC. Just told you, hope that it wasn't that boring. Okay, now we are going to the meat of this presentation. What is the most important questions to ask and to answer when you are testing the banking applications? First of all, what is common in testing of banking application with other apps? Second one, in my opinion, will be what are specific challenges? And third one, because you probably maybe you want to be a tester of banking application, what domain knowledge you should have? Okay, let's start with the first one. What is common in testing of banking application other applications? I will say everything is same. Why? Here is login to Gmail, here's a login to Bank Zachodni. Looking the same, yeah, it's just a login. So, what would be common to the sign of to log into the Gmail? You have to log into services. You have the response codes from the server. You have the HTTPS protocol to test. You have the usability to test. UX, if it's looking good or not, or if your experience is good, yeah. But what will be the specific challenges just for a login screen here in the banking application? Login to services? Yeah, but this will be specific blocking of the user, right? You will have like 5 attempts only, stuff like that. Login to services again, unlocking of the user. You will not have the questions, security questions, something like that. You will have to call the service. You will have to check the CRM, or you have to check the PIN that is coming from you for your special token, stuff like that. Response codes from the server will be probably when you are testing the stuff, will be from mocks, not for the normal servers. It is a bit different all the time. You have to know why it's limited or why something is not working. Accessibility is becoming a bigger topic. I will talk about it a bit later. And masking of responses from the server. HTTPS protocol is one thing, but second thing is the masking of that. It has to be on the even bigger level. Like Arnika said, security testing of the banks is probably on the highest level now. Okay. Why I posted that? It's our Internet Explorer. Just to fun, you probably will have to forget in testing banking applications about using Chrome, Mozilla, or Safari. You will have to stick with the browser, which is IA9 or IA8. Yeah, we already have somebody who is testing the apps. We know that. We only hope that maybe Edge will be coming now a bit more reliable and they will switch, because testing the JS code on Internet Explorer 8 is just, it's pure hate. Okay, that was a fun thing. What are the normal ones? Technical knowledge is probably on a bigger level than in other applications. This is what my friends are saying to me when they are coming to the project. Security is on a much bigger level. Complexity is in much bigger level. And also time. I will explain that at the end. Okay, technical knowledge. Let's see by points. Versioning. Unfortunately, when you are testing the banking application, you probably have like 3 million branches, 3 million versions. Everything is in the Git. You have to know a Git. You have to know the commands. You have to run the server by yourself. You have to check the develop. You have to know which one is the last production, which is on the UAT now, because bug will be explained like, this is on the UAT found, this is found on the develop. You have to open this server or build it by your own. Crazy. So build by your own, npm install, and you can go for a coffee. That is a good part in the job as a banking tester. Okay, technical knowledge number 2. Number of used developed servers. I already told you have to build a lot of them. But you have a situation where you have a developed server, production server, 3 different servers for UAT because guys are, just lazy. Integration server between you and them. And if you will thought any time about something different, they probably already invented that. So you'll have the next server to automation, next server to second automation. Maybe mobile application will be also having their own server. Why? We don't know. They pay. Okay. Number of used APIs and integrated systems. This is really hateful thing. Why? Because in one of the applications I was testing, during the whole process, so when you were doing something in the application, you probably connected to 40 different APIs. 40 different responses, 40 different statuses coming to you, and this all have to be checked from the beginning to the end. Hateful. Integration to outside application. you don't only have the inner banking application. You also have the outside application, like you have, I don't know, KRS in Poland, Krajowy Rejestr Sądowniczy. You have to check the NIB of the company. You have to check the credit risk for this company. This is you know, just imagine how many things is here connected. That's why I pointed complexity. Responses from the server. This will be what you will love. Because you are using mocks, because you are using a lot of different applications, sometimes server is down, sometimes server is not up, sometimes mock is just giving you wrong integration responses. So you'll have to open the console, look at the response, check the response, write to your developer and say if this error is already raised or not. Sometimes you will know already that this is just error from the server, you will have to restart it again. Okay, accessibility. To these three monkeys. One, it's in Buddha, it will be not seeing harm, not doing something with evil. In our case, it's just you don't see, you don't hear, you don't speak. Why? Because these people also want to use the applications. And because of the law now in Europe and also in the America, you have to provide the accessibility on the level that is described in the WC3 norms. There are three levels of that: A, AA, and AAA. The differences are if you can use, I don't know, tabulator, or if you can use the mouse or stuff like that. And accessibility now is required for the application that are assigned to the client. You can look over your bank application, how it changed in the last 2 years. This is one of the reasons why it's done. Just as an example, when Bank Zachodni took care about that, because one guy thought about it moments before. mBank before was the most important company in having the best accounts for the people that are not seeing well. But they changed completely the page. It was crap for them. Maybe for us, it was good. For them, they just hated that. And Bank Zachodni in this moment thought, we have a guy, we fixed our thing, and they just pushed it. It was a lot of clients came from this bank to another. That is the stuff that you have to take in the mind when you're also doing your own application. Your normal application, accessibility is coming bigger and bigger stuff. Okay, we already have this. So versioning, number of used developed servers, number of used APIs, responses from servers, accessibility, and two other things. SQL, everybody hears that stories that SQL is mostly used in the banking applications. You have to check on the base. Yeah, it's true, unfortunately. And you also have only mocks sometimes in projects, so it's also the problems that I already described. So, technical knowledge, done. Security. Yeah, we are starting with this stuff, Citrix. Who is using Citrix in his work? Yeah, how you love to work only on one screen, because Citrix is also sometimes limiting that. Yeah, I see that everybody is happy. This is only one of the tools. Why? Because you want to be secure. This is a secure channel to the connection. You have the infrastructure there by the client. He's controlling that. It's safe for him. You also have to probably sometimes use VPNs. Sometimes, in the worst cases, for the companies, they have to send you there because the infrastructure is closed. And you have to work over the closed infrastructure there on the client side because, I don't know, you'll be deploying something. Sometimes, when you're happy, the guy is coming to you, and I saw these cases that it was 10 people coming just to our office to show us the code, to show us the API, discuss it with us, because they had the access to that, and they cannot share it with us between, the connection, stuff like that. Why? Millions of reasons, because millions of nodes on the accounts. That's the reason. Okay, security, other stuff, password and tokens. To test application I'm working on, Kate will probably say it's true, you have to type 5 different passwords just to get to the application screen. Every day you will have to remember the passwords. Good if they don't tell you to change them every day, or they all have to be different. Sometimes they have to be the same. Good for us. Recovering the password when you lost it and forgot it is taking 1 to 2 days. So it's taking a time, and also it's a precious time of a tester, so always remember your password. Last thing is tokens. The tokens have to be sometimes provided by the client face-to-face. You will either have to go to the client, your PM will have to go to the client to get your token, and this token looks like that. Just for this stuff, you have to visit the London. Awesome for me, but worse for client, they have to pay for that. Okay, next thing of the security is database masking the data. Because you cannot use the normal data that client has because maybe it's prohibited, maybe Gyodo, maybe they don't want you to know who their clients are. You will have the data masked. Some operations on the databases, let's not go to this too deep. But it's because of the data for the clients, masked data by hashes. It's making your life also sometimes miserable. Why? Because they forgot to provide you data which is correct sometimes. And you will don't find the specific test case scenario in which you will have this kind of a data because they will never provide it to you because of the reasons. And that's the answer from them. You will have to click that and you have to use the SQL by yourself to get the kind of a data you need. Or you have to spend a day just to preparing the client because of the operations that you have to do on the UI for this client to have the in the correct state. Yes, unfortunately, sometimes it happens, but it also, is a challenge. KYC for a team members. You already know what is KYC? Know your client, know your customer. In this case, when you are ordered by the client, they will have to check your background. So it's not only for QAs, investigations also for developers, for PMs, for whole team. Sometimes it takes a lot of paperwork. When I was working in the previous company, we had to go to the client to work with them. We have to fill the more paperwork than I had to fill for the USA visa. So this is a lot. And the background check is taking you a month. So that means your PM cannot change you easily in the project. Happy. Okay, let's assume it up. Security, Citrix or similar tools, password and tokens, database, masking data, providing the data from the client, KYC for team members, for developers and also for automotive testers. No easy code sharing sometimes because they don't have the infrastructure for doing that, or it's very slow. Mocks, once again, as this is also sometimes it's hard to test security on the mocks. Okay, next point is complexity, because a lot of applications have to be connected. We have the low requirements from our BAs, or maybe you are the quality analyst, what already was described by previous speaker. You also can be this guy who will be looking over that. It's a lot. And a lot of variables that have to be taken into account because the process is sometimes very long. Sometimes it's very, very, very long because we already spoke about the regulations. It's a lot of them. A lot of them can be combined. A lot of them can be in the one moment. Okay. Also, one of the points why it's the complexity. Often over the application you are working on, it's not only done by your company or by your team. You have the financial institution will have their own team to doing something. The UAT team will be something else, some other part of the people. SQL team just for databases, and you can have like 4 different types of SQL in the application. Deployment team, you will have to call the guy just to deploy a thing on the server, and this also can take a time. Other application teams to what you should integrate, because now banks are changing all of the stuff from the reasons that I mentioned, the laws that are changing constantly. They also have to change their own APIs on some other applications. They have to invest, and because now a lot of applications are changed, simultaneously, there are problems because you have to connect to the API of the different company, but the API is not done. Why? Because maybe the law regulation changed, because maybe they still don't know how to implement that from the application which is 20 years old. These are the problems that you can spot on. Complexity? Yeah, that's cool. Time. Production errors. You hate that because when client calls and he says that he has an error in production, probably it means that you will not go home this day. Which means extra hours, which means also a nice money for you. You see, I already forgot. So there are also fines, and this is which is much more complicated for the banks. You are paying a lot of money if something is not working as it should. In 2012, RBS, for example, after just a blockage of the accounts, have to pay 56 million of pounds because the clients couldn't enter to the service for a day or two. This is a lot of money for a single mistake, and it was a big problem. Okay. What is the reward? I already told you that this is awful, this is bad. What is the reward, in my opinion? You have a knowledge because you have to complete very, very much of the technical stuff, the role requirements, also work with different teams, different APIs. You have to overcome the challenges. You also have the chance to visit interesting places just to get this token. We already see that somebody visited and is happy. And because of the KYC, we have a stable work. And the last, maybe for some people it's more important, is this. You have also a bit bigger money because of the reasons which I mentioned already. Okay, let's say we want now to look over the example. Here is the test transfer model. I don't know, everybody is paying for, I don't know, for his car, for his taxes, for other stuff like that. You have to pay for it. So you know how it looks. So you probably will see a lot of numbers, a username have to be tested, balance have to be tested after transaction, currency which you are paying if it's correctly, rated. Inner transfers are done a bit different way. Faster transfers because we have the transfers that have to be on the client in the same day or the next day, business day, which are faster than the other ones. SMS confirmation, right? This is some things that are coming to you straight away when you're looking at the transfer. Right? Am I right? Probably, yeah. But if you are testing that stuff, you also have to find one more thing. Or maybe not one. Cut-off times. So this is the times when bank is working and can do a transfer. You have to check that. And this is really pain in the ass because you can have to change the server time, have to change the server time somewhere else, just to check if the money are correctly flowing. Transfers over 50,000 euros. Anybody has idea why it's under here and why it has to be checked? Money laundering. Our beautiful laws are making us to look over and report every transfer made over 50,000 euros. So if you will go to bank and, I don't know, pay for your car 65,000 zloty and euro is for 4, you will be listed there. Credit card transfer split. If you are doing a transfer from your credit card, fees are probably a bit different. Also have to be taken into account. Transfers outside EU are also a bit different than the transfers inside the European Union or the transfers inside one country. IBAN numbers, codes for the other banks, it has also to be checked. It's a bit different model. It's not coming to you straight away. Okay, that was the easier example. Now it's the example number 2. Yeah, so let's imagine that we are testing the application, which is the inner application for our banking institution, financial institution. And let's imagine that we have to just board the client to this application. So like you are making the record, I don't know, and you are making the new Gmail account, you will have to here to just do the account for the client. And just name the 4 most important steps in that way. KYC, AML regulation, triggering of all current correct documents, and calculating of risk for a bank. Yeah, I think that's the fun because it's a complex, and it's also taking some time, and it's also, it makes your life a bit happier because you can find a lot of errors. Okay, let's just assume also that this can be done, everything can be done in different app, or it can be done in just one app. Or maybe just APIs calculating the risk in the banking. Okay, KYC. So, question for you. What will be the needed data if you are boarding the company here in Poland? Anybody has an idea? NIP. What will be else? Address. Regon, yeah, but we are getting leaving that off. Something else? What is coming to me? Yeah, so the parenting company branches, not branches, other offices, it also have to be checked. Why? Because maybe they have the credits already opened for them. Stuff like that. This is, this is just the beginning. What is requested for anti-money laundering cases? Maybe this company is investing in the derivatives. So you have to also check if they are having this kind of a deals. They have to provide some documents for that. What kind of documents have to be presented by this new company, by this new branch? We already told. The history of the records, maybe the KRS, if there's a spółka z ograniczoną odpowiedzialnością. Maybe the credit record, maybe also the deals they have already. It all depends in the owner in their application bank. What system we can integrate to? We have in Poland some systems that are already giving their API away, and you can check some records in the KRS, you can check some records about Regon, about PESEL, stuff like that. So you can integrate to that, and you also can think about it. What you can check, and what you will be connecting to. This is just a testing of the KYC. Anti-money laundering regulations. Let's assume that this company is quite big, so they will have the contacts all over the world. So based on the region that they will have a dealing, so I don't know, if you'll be dealing with the Japan, we will be dealing with the Hong Kong, with the USA, you will have to have a different regulation taken care of. Triggering of the anti-money laundering based on what we already entered in the KYC, so what the deals, what is done there. Other system checkings, they are coming now because it's taking some time to check some of the things, in case also in the big companies. Okay. Next step, triggering of all correct documents. Because banks love documents, PDFs, Words, Excels, yeah, XML is our favorite one, that's true. So, each AML act is probably a different new document, and it has to be entered in the system. In the way of the form or in the way of the just uploading the document, but it has to be done. So sometimes you have like, just step in your test case will be uploading 10 different documents. And you must know which are the correct ones or if the triggers are the correct ones. Different internal regulations about role of the companies inside the banks. Like I showed you a few slides before, you have a different, like the stock exchange, the broker, they are coming here in this moment because the internal regulation will be different for the different type of the company you have. Check also, there should probably be a check of these documents if they are shady by some legal team, by your lawyers, by your managers. They will have to accept that. So you also have to check your flow with this kind of the steps. Last one is the calculating of the risk for the bank. After we booked already, after we have all the documents, we have to calculate because at the end we want to know if it's worth to deal with that institution, by the bank or by our financial institution. I don't know if you want to insure that guy or if we want to even have his account because we will have a problems because he will be, I don't know, financing the terrorism or he has by his 20th company in the branch, he will be dealing the arms to North Korea and this will be a problem for you. Yeah, that's maybe we can laugh, but to be honest, that's why banks are checking and that's why sometimes it's taking a lot of time for them to proceed the info. There are different factors for calculating the risk. You can name a few, but just say that there are a lot of them. Risk can also have impact on the mother company because we are boarding the branch of the one company. We also can be boarding the company to the other one that is connected there. Also our bank, like BZWBK, is connected to the Santander. So they have the systems are coming there and maybe there is information that this guy already owes us a lot of money, we cannot deal with him. This stuff also have to be checked during our testing scenarios. That's why I'm all the time talking about the complexity. So, third question, what domain knowledge you should have? You should know the basic terms already covered. Specific for project terms should be explained because there is so much knowledge and also there is so many specific terms that when you are boarded to the project, you probably have the few days just to look over what this means, what this is coming to you. Yeah, it's true.
I think it's just you have to have good domain knowledge and then understand what your business is doing. Because without that, you just multitasker, you don't understand. Even though you have a good technical knowledge.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But also
Domain knowledge, it's not for today.
depends. Yeah, I mean that depends. Yeah, but maybe you have a previous experience. Maybe you are just quick learner. I mean that maybe maybe it's easy. Maybe it's just this easy application. Yeah, but I mean that it depends on the project. The project should give you a knowledge about that. It's not that you will be left alone. SQL. Unfortunately, we'll have to know a lot of SQL queries. Sometimes it's less in the project, sometimes it's a bit more, but unfortunately, at least once a week, you will have to write something in SQL in most of the project. English, it's obvious, unfortunately, and accessibility is becoming a bigger and bigger factor in the bank's applications. Like I said, the WC3 norm is coming to face it, and you have to check it. Accessibility testing, I really wish you could, learn more about that, but it's not the part of this presentation. Okay. Next topic, and the last of this presentation, is the PSD2. What is the PSD2? It's the Revised Payment Service Directive. It was signed just in the European Union. It's affecting all of the banks in Europe. And it means that banks will have to provide APIs for third-party providers, like in our example, Wszelaki 24. Because when you are initiating it is deployed a bit later. Sorry, I really forgot. It was proposed in 2013, and in 2015, 23rd December, entered the official journal, so become a law in the EU. Just imagine how much time it will take to become a law in Poland. And the answer will be on the next slide. So, what is being changed here? Banks will have to provide the API API information for third-party providers. We'll have the two types of APIs. One will be the first one will be the payment initiation providers. Second one will be account information services. And graph is looking like a bit like this. So the old way was that customer was going to merchant was going to the bank when he paid, card network, and issuer bank was paying to the merchant this way. Now it should be going a bit different. Customer is just going to the PSP. So this new API is connecting to the bank and is connecting to the merchant. Much less work, much less, transfers, much less things. Second example is when the easiest one to explain is when you are going to check your card, when you want to, buy a house. You have to have all these credit checks. You have to provide a lot of documents from the different banks if you have the bank account in different one. Now, it all should be done by the one API. Your credit rater is just, typing your name, surname, few documents you have with you, and the information should be sent to him, and he can now have the information about you from all of the banking. What problem you see? API have to be secure. API also have to be really, universal to connect all these API providers. So it's quite a big challenge. So, like I said, the riddle is now solved. In Poland, the Direct Act was signed in January this year, so not long ago. The European Banking Authority agreed over the regulatory technical standard on November last year, so not that long ago. Directive will come to force in 2019, so in the next year. The next year, banks will start to pay fines if they will not give you the API. API is now worked by the three different, not companies, but the groups of the banks. One of them is the Berlin Group, so the group is about the German banks. Second one is UK Open Banking Standard, which was probably on the most advanced one, but because UK is leaving European Union, we now have the problem with that. We have to go with our own. And because French guys always want to do something differently and by their own, they have the STAT standard, and nobody knows if it will be even used. But why I was talking about that? Because this is bringing us three things. New opportunities, new businesses will be open, and there will be a need of a lot more banking application testers, because all of that is connected to the banking. So at the end, you will just cry and leave your you will leave for a new company which will be paying you more. Thank you for your attention.
I'd like to ask, is it possible to share presentation that you...
Yeah, for sure. Ask just Lena and we will share that.
Okay,
not a problem. Okay, second one. I know it was a bit long, I know it was maybe a bit boring, but unfortunately this is the real stuff.
Okay, so how long did it take you to get so fluent in all this knowledge?
Generally, it's no, it's not the big problem in this cases because, just for example, in the previous company when I was testing the this ICBC bank, the application was just taking care of the all documents that are used internally, and because of the one field that you were checking on, if you are checked that there is the OTC derivative there, it will mean that if the country is hosted in the United States on the on this KYC level, it will mean that 20 screens after, you will have to have this report for 59 fields with EMIR regulation or maybe other regulation, because this is the OTC derivative. All different documents for the one group, different for other. That means that it's not getting fluent in that. That is getting used to that, because it's not different than any other application. It's just scary names, scary law acts. But it's not different in different application use. If you are providing the internet shop, you also have a different registries, different stuff to test. It's also sometimes it's really difficult because you can I don't know, have to add the coupon for that. Have this case when you have a 100% to check if it's working, right? This API. In this case, scary names and a bit longer process. But if you want to learn, if you're listening good, you will learn that, in my opinion. But this is just my opinion. Okay. We'll wait for microphone.
What did you find the most challenging when you are, I don't know, start to work there in banking domain? What was the most complicated?
Time is more complicated. I forgot to add it, unfortunately, in the presentation, like always, I forgot. That because of these fines, that because of this KYC for your own team, because it's complicated, because it's taking time to connect to the different API, to check that on the SQL server, you are always behind your head have the deadline. And the deadline in this case is not like the one you have on other things. You can, I don't know, sell the product, you will just say that, this is bug, this is something. No, in this case, they will find it because they have the UAT team. You will have to pay a fine. Your company will have to pay a fine. So it's a bit stressful. But it's also challenging. I like to have a challenge because it's, much more fun when you are dealing with the devil, in my opinion. And also, it means that you can work a bit more and earn a bit more. And they are paying quite well for, extra hours. So that's also fun for somebody. If you don't have a family or I don't know. Real life. No, I'm just making fun. Generally, they are planning very good their work and they know what to do. And after the time frames, they are limiting their work. But sometimes, yeah, it's true. But it's true always in any company you have. Okay, next question I saw. Lena, behind you.
It's quite connected with your answer about extra time. Could you please? It's quite connected with your answer about extra time. Could you please share us information or reveal information about how much do they pay for like extra time?
For extra time, we cannot share. I cannot share that. You see that there is that X, but generally, I will say that you will not be, you will not be sad when you will see the paycheck. The general thing for me, one of the very maybe rewarding for me was when I can go to London and visit London for 2 weeks just because they wanted me to test their closet infrastructure, because I couldn't have the product. I cannot, get to the normal production database, but we had a lot of errors connected with, upgrading of the version. Somebody had to go there. Nobody wanted. I went there. I, visited the London. I have the free food, free place to sleep. Was starting a bit earlier, leaving, and went, I don't know, to Madame Tussauds. Awesome. For me, it was awesome. And also, my friend visited the Singapore, and after 2 visits to the Singapore, he's now working in the Singapore, and he has a contract for 2 years in the Singapore. So if you are, I don't know, if you're single and you want to look over some part of the world, you can have a chance to do it. Other my friend is going to Canada every 2 months because he has to go to the client. I think that it's also rewarding for you if you can do it. Remember, it's for free. Yeah, sometimes say that you have to work, but also you have the okay. I don't see you. I can tell it. You also have the guys from the India. So sometimes they will find a lot of the bugs you will miss, but also they are making your life a bit easier because they are working really slowly. So you have a bit of time for you. Any more questions? Oh, okay.
One question. So not about the money, about the amount of overtime hours per month.
No, it's not that much. It depends on the month. Sometimes really, when you have a big impact and you have a big challenge, you will have to spend the weekend in the work, right? Tomek will agree with me. Sometimes it's just the weekend. Sometimes you will just have to stay 4 hours longer just because there is a bug on the production. Sometimes you will get a free day off for that. Sometimes not. It depends. It depends on the project. I think it's not much different than in any other company. Any other questions? Thank you once again.
Okay, well, hello, I'm Tomek, and actually let's get started because it's getting dark. So this is the plan of the presentation. I'll tell you how banks struggle and with what, and how they adapt, and then I will try to convince you to jump on the train and lead the change. And then we'll have questions and answers. Here's a bunch of facts of me and my best picture so far. So you can read that. You can then download that later on. It's not very important. So let's just let's jump to it. This is something that intrigued me a few months back. It's a bunch of facts collected by the NTT Data Incorporated, sorry. And notice that this is for 2016. And for the last 2 years, not much has changed, but there are slight changes that are actually very important. So we'll just talk about these 2 points on the left, your left, yeah. And then here, this part with the customers, I'm not really sure how to, yeah, there. So this is something that I find very interesting. So what it says basically, you can read it, but I have a question about that. Have any of you chose your bank based on how tech savvy it is, or how how the application looks like? Because see, me neither. I always go for the lowest rates. So in the end, this might come in the future. I remember that once I didn't set up a bank account because they limited the password to only numbers and only between 6 and 8 characters. And actually, when I couldn't set it up because it was abroad and they didn't respect my ID, a guy called and told me that if I tell him the password I want to set, he will set it for me in the CRM. So I didn't. Anyways, let's just talk about the things on the left. So banks are challenged by integration, and Cosma talked about this in greater detail. And the main point, the pain point of banks is the complexity of existing solutions, as well, right there. Because they are huge. So it's like for everyday banking, like for you and me, you can't actually notice it. But for private sector, where there are companies that have 300 different accounts, and that's not an over-exaggeration, they actually have that many accounts. They have accounts in every single currency, in every single, I don't know, country, and then they use trading accounts from this side, and then for inter-accounts, for inter-transfers, they use different accounts, and the bank has to charge each of these different accounts differently. It's very, very complex, and the legacy modules, it's what the other point said, that they use things that are 30, 40 years older than all of us. So basically, they do it because they work. And over the course of these 30 years or something, they changed bits, they replaced some other things, and now the insides of a bank usually looks like Frankenstein's, but they they talk, they walk, they are kind of alive, so they use them. And it's very, very hard. It adds a lot of complexity to the whole solution, because probably people who created that died, and then all the documentation was burned, and now you just you have to reverse engineer everything. And then the multi-layered data storage, they have a database for everything, even if they want to keep the same thing. But for example, they keep one thing for the government, for the auditing, they keep it in one database. They keep the same thing, but for you, for your transaction history, in another database. And then just to have more relations, they actually don't store the names or the hashes of the users for whom they store it. That's in another database, and then they have to relate it somehow. So I don't know why it was done, but I think that regulations played a part. Nowadays, it actually is changing very rapidly. So before, for the last, 20 years ago, there weren't many changes in the banking system. Everybody was like, oh, banks work, so that's cool. But now it all changes, and it changes more and more rapidly. So the regulations, I don't know if you know, but for example, there is this law in many countries that your private data cannot leave the country. So if there's a bank from Ireland and they use Amazon Cloud, for example, and then they want to open a branch here in Poland, and they say, well, we have a working solution, we're just going to use it, right? And then they come to Poland and the Polish government says, no, 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 no. You have to keep the data of our customers in Poland. And they say, well, there is no Amazon region in Poland. Well, then find something else. And so the regulations are actually very, very limiting, and they force banks to do things they wouldn't otherwise have done. And then third-party components. Even though the banks are really, really huge, they don't own everything. So, for example, your cards. The cards are issued by Visa or MasterCard or American Express or any other issuer of cards, but they don't belong to, I don't know, mBank or PKO BP or any other bank. So these banks actually have to integrate with these issuers of cards to clear the transactions, to check the funds, and to secure payments. And it adds complexity on top of that. And then the multicultural teams. Now banks are expanding their own internal IT departments, but they still externalize a lot. And they externalize to cheap countries like Poland or India. So the multicultural teams is actually very, the interaction is very interesting because the same thing means different things to different people depending on where you're from. If you say, I don't know, someone will think, oh, well, he doesn't know now, but he's going to find out and let me know. And then someone else will say, well, if I say I don't know, then that means I don't know. And then someone else will say, well, if they say I don't know, you have to ask them 3 times, and then they will suddenly know because they like to be asked. So, so same thing, different meaning for different people. And now the second part. The majority of spending is for maintenance and compliance with regulations. And this is true, but not entirely. And this is where the change is happening. So banks now know that they cannot do what they did before. Before there was nothing, then they paid a lot of money to some people, and then they created something. And that's the something that we use today. But now banks cannot pay money to people to create the new thing and then replace the old thing. And they cannot do it for 2 reasons. One is it's too complex to actually create everything that was done for the last 30 years from scratch. And then it's too risky. Banks are not going to risk failing in any point just because they want to have the new stuff. Okay, so they are always going to have the old stuff as the backup plan. And the way to do it, the way to progress, because they know they have to. They know they have to change because of the regulations, because of the tastes of customers, and because there is much more competition. So they introduce innovation 1 step at a time. And the misleading part is this one. The maintenance cost. Well, the maintenance cost that they pay is not to maintain the old things. It's actually to maintain the new things. Okay, so for the client that I work for, there are 2 levels of his IT department. One is the A team. They lead the change and they set the example and they create proof of concepts that then all the companies that are to which the customer externalizes work have to follow. But then once these companies do their bit, they pass it to the second part of the IT department, which is the maintenance. Because the banks know that this change is not going to happen over time. Overnight. It's going to take time. So now they see it profitable to actually expand their internal IT departments, but they cannot grow fast enough with the demand. So they have a team or teams that create the change, that leads the change, and then they have a team that will support it for the next 5, 10, maybe 20 years. And that's exactly the last point here. They use state-of-the-art technology. They use machine learning and AI and everything that's new and awesome right now, because they want to do it once and then be done for the next 20 years or something. So they used the most modern things they can find, just to be sure they don't have to redo it in 3 or 5 years. okay? And the enabling new access channels, this is kind of a demand of the market. You need to have a mobile app. So if you don't, you have to pay someone to create one for you. So enabling new access channels usually means redoing your online solutions and then adding the mobile solutions as well, okay? And all that explanation it comes down to this. There's plenty of work, and most of it is interesting, okay? And now, in testing, you can do a lot of different kinds of testing in bank. The security is in very high demand right now. You can do performance, you can do accessibility, what Cosma said. You can do many different things, but I wanted to focus on the functional side. So as a functional tester, you have one principal choice. You can either go front end or you can go back end, okay? And what I said before about new access channels, you could think that, oh, they are adding, they're changing online solutions and they are adding the mobile. So probably there's more work in front end, but that's not true. And even though backend is the hideous and, and the ugly part, it's actually much bigger. And to put that in perspective, this is the front end and backend. So let's just focus on online and mobile. So everything you have in your mobile app for the bank, like transfers or loans or setting limits for your cards and whatnot, every single thing there has a backend component. So a transfer page has a transfer component. The history page has a history component, and so on. So you could say that it's one-to-one. But that's still not true, because a lot of things in banks are hidden. And that means that backends in bank have backends, and backends of backends have backends, and it goes way, way down. Okay? So, for example, in transfers, when you do a transfer, it's not as easy as it seems, because the bank has to go through a lot of checks to comply with regulations, the legal compliance. It has to check if you are authorized to do it, because if you are you're a company and you have 300 different accounts, then probably there is not a single employee in your company that can use all 300 accounts. So they need to check if you can use this account and you can make the transfer to somewhere. And then if it's abroad, then they need to check the currency exchange. And if it's after the transfer window for the day, they need to do it tomorrow. So they need to reschedule that. And then they need to settle the amounts. So they need to choose when to block that money on your account and when to give it to the beneficiary. And so all these things you don't see, but they need to be done. And that is part of the backend, okay? So if you want a steady career in banking, I suggest go backend, okay? Become a backend tester. And backend in general has a steeper learning curve, but once you get to know the techniques and the tools, it's actually very rewarding. It's much more robust than front end. And if you're an automation tester, it actually automates much easier than front end. And generally, I really like testing backend. There's just one drawback to testing backend, and that's that black box testers are not allowed. And that's actually because it's impossible. Think about it this way. You are just a tiny cogwheel in a very huge machine that's the bank. And even if you try to treat your API as a black box, you need to know where the inputs come from and what they are, and what the outputs are and how to test them. So you have to have domain knowledge to be able to test it. For example, chances are like 95% to 5% that if you're working for a bank, you're not working on the login API. It's already done somewhere. Someone did it. So your API assumes that you're logged in. But your tests, you need to write them, or you need to do them manually. So you need to be able to log in. And that's the knowledge that you need. You need to be able to generate a session for you to be able to actually do anything. And since you already need to know about other parts of the system, there's no point in being a black box tester on your API, okay? And then you might think, well, I actually responded to that already. So why you can't be a black box tester? But now that you know that you can't be a black box tester, you might think, well, Tomek, how do you do backend testing? Well, I'll tell you. It's actually very simple. It comes down to two questions. First is if the technology used in the project that you're aiming for is REST and JSON. This is the oldest, newest, best, easiest to work with technology stack. And I say if the project that you're aiming for uses that technology, then go for it. It's the best way to start your adventure in backend is actually through a project with REST and JSON, okay? If it's not, then you need to ask the second question. Is it based on SOAP and XML? These are technologies that are already like 20 years old, but there are still many great tools that can help you with that. So my take on that is, fine, whatever. You can do it. It's a bit steeper, it's more verbose, it's a bit cumbersome, but you can do it, okay? And now, if there are two no's and the technology you're going to work with predates SOAP, then the only way forward is to run away. Seriously, it's not worth your time, okay? So now that we have that cleared, let's jump into it. So REST and JSON. REST is actually easy enough to do manually. You can do it from a command line using a tool called CURL or any similar. You can make requests and everything's done. But in banking, it's never that simple. So what I said before, you need to start a session because your API assumes you're authenticated. And if you need to start a session, you need to add cookies or headers, and then it becomes this, see? So for simple APIs or for some checks like exploratory testing, like very punctual here and there, you can do it manually, but I wouldn't recommend it. This is usually not keyed in, it's prepared in a text file and then just copy, paste it, and it can be done, but I wouldn't suggest it. So what I would suggest is Postman. Postman is the greatest tool that was ever invented, period. It allows you to do everything you want, and it's super cool. So the payload that was there in the line is this. It allows you to create that as a text. It actually has syntax highlighting because everybody likes colors. It has auto-completion for header names. It supports authentication here. Every major type of authentication, doesn't matter, it supports it. And if that's not enough, you can actually then write tests on your responses. So you can create this request manually, you can set it, you can send it, you can then receive the response, see if it works, tweak it until it works. And once it works, you can write assertions on the response. And then you can save it to a collection here, and then with the runner, you already have a smoke test suite. Just doing your exploratory testing, you are creating your smoke suite, and if you do enough, you can actually run regressions on that. And this here, it supports JavaScript syntax, so you can configure the requests before you send them, and you can then test responses after you receive them. So you can actually have dynamic data in your tests, and that's really awesome. And if that's not enough, you can actually share it. The collections are shareable, so one guy creates that, and then every other new tester in your group will just receive that, and then no duplicate effort. It's just, it's amazing. And you can pay if you want even more awesomeness, but just, the free version is packed with features. So yeah, highly recommend that. And if you want to automate in Java, I suggest using Rest Assured. It's a very neat library, and the best thing is this first point, automatic parsing of payloads to POJOs. So POJOs are plain old Java objects like these over here. So you create these objects, and you name these variables as the fields are named in the payloads you want to receive. And then you create a factory that just, sets these fields to the values that you want. And then you send it. And you send it as a request, which is an object of the user request class. And that means that you don't need to do any JSON parsing, any parsing at all. It's just you create these classes, and then it takes care of everything. It parses the classes to JSON and then parses responses to your Java objects. It's extremely valuable. If you use it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I like the native support for BDD syntax because I'm a BDD fanboy. The given when then is just syntactic sugar, but it allows you to format the code the way you want. And it has a built-in assertion module. If you don't want to use something like Hamcrest or any other assertion library, you can use what's built in. So it's an all-around package. Everything is there. It's super easy to use and to set up, and it's just it's a breeze to work with. It doesn't look like Java at all. It's really, really cool. So in Python, you can do the same. There's a module called requests. And what is cool about Python is that the basic built-in data structure that is basically a hash map, it's called a dictionary in Python. It is used for the JSON parsing. So the JSON parsing is, again, automatic, and it actually parses to the most efficient data structure that exists in Python. And it's extremely easy to set this thing up. If you have Python, you install two libraries, that's Hamcrest and requests, and then you write 20 lines of code, and you have your first test automated. And it's as quick as using Postman or any other tool to actually get started. So again, I'm a Python fanboy, so I think this is awesome. But I think objectively, it actually is. And I think now, now we pass to SOAP. SOAP. Okay, so SOAP is a bit older. It was invented in 1998. And it was crap until in 2000, someone invented the WSDL files. So the web service description language, this is part of a WSDL file. That's like 1/3. So the whole file was like 60-something lines of XML code. And what these WSDL files give you is the ability to describe your APIs. And what's the other part of the puzzle is the SOAP UI. SOAP UI is the best tool to test SOAP-based services. As you can see in the header, it actually has REST as well, but I wouldn't recommend it for REST. It's very cumbersome for REST, but for SOAP, it's the go-to solution, because what it allows you to do is to import the WSDL file, and then it will create the request for you. All you need to do is just replace the question mark with the value that you want, and then you can press play and send it. And it's done. So to compare JSON and WSDL files from SOAP, think about it this way. In the REST and JSON example, there were, I think, 8 lines of payload that defined 5 or 6 different variables. And here, 60-something lines of XML code defines one action that has one parameter. That's the difference. That's the gap between SOAP and REST. Okay. But it's still doable, and SOAP UI is the way to go. And SOAP UI has one major advantage over Postman. It has a built-in proxy, and this is very specific to banking. In banking, you are restricted access to almost everything. So if you need to do any testing, very often you find yourself in a situation where people ask you when you are going to test it, and you actually can't access that URL because you are not allowed to. So in these situations, if you have a built-in proxy in anywhere and you don't have to use the system proxy that has the policies of the bank, you can skip that check and you can go around that and actually do these tests. So for integration tests with some APIs that are God knows where, SOAP UI is actually very good, and sometimes you end up creating a few REST calls as well, because there are just these things that you need to call once a month, and they are REST-based, but there is no tool that can go around the security policies of the machine that you work on. So then SOAP UI is your friend. You can actually create test suites here in SOAP UI, but they are static. So whatever you create there in requests gets sent, and if you need to use, I don't know, the item IDs that change or the user IDs with different accounts, then you would have to redo it every single time. If you pay, if you pay for SOAP UI, then you get the ability to script and to make your test dynamic, but then you have to script in Groovy, and who wants to learn Groovy? So yeah, there you go. And then SOAP automation. Actually, I haven't done any SOAP automation for a while in Python, so I'll skip that and just focus on Java. In Java, there's this neat tool called WSDL to Java, which is your friend. What it does is it takes a path. You set this path to your WSDL file, and then it will automatically generate the POJOs for you. And this actually saves you a lot of time. And this is the piece that's the boring work, because you'll have to redo in Java what's already there in the WSDL file, and you have to do it just to be able to use it. And it's not fun. You're not coding any logic. You're just coding blocks and blocks and blocks, then you will end up using sometime if you don't die first. So it's actually very cool, and this plugin is smart enough to know when to use objects and when to use primitives. So in Java, you can create like numbers as integer objects or as int primitives. And the difference between these is that int primitives don't allow null values. And in banks, you use nulls everywhere. And that's because of the legacy code. You have requests in SOAP that have maybe 50 fields, out of which 25, no one knows what they are and no one uses them, but they exist there. And then from the rest, from the 25, 15 you can omit and just leave blank. And then there are 10 fields that you actually have to set to something. And then if this plugin didn't know when to use the objects that can be nullable and the primitives that cannot, you will get a lot of null exceptions everywhere. So this plugin, really, really cool. And then the way to do it, the way to represent this in Java code is to use Java's XML SOAP package. And then what you need to do is you need to create a SOAP message. And then the SOAP message is like the entity that is invisible. And then in that SOAP message, you create the envelope, this first part. You create an envelope. And then in the envelope, you grab the body. You can see that header is omitted because it's there's nothing in the header, so it's auto-closed here. So we grab the reference to body. And then in the body, we create the say hello element. And in that element, we create the first name element. And then in that element, we add a text node, which is actually the name that you want to use. And then we just throw it in a stream and convert it to a string. And then probably return it to your controller to send it to whatever you're testing. But in the end, it's not that huge. Well, maybe the example isn't representative. If there were like 50 different fields, you would have to repeat these two lines 50 times. And that's only if the structure was flat. But if there was a lot of indentation going like, well, in this field, you have another field that has another field that has another field, then it would get very tedious here because you would have to grab reference to every single level and then in the end create something. But in the end, it's doable. It's doable and it's not that hard, okay? And that leaves us with just one topic, which is testing SOAP manually. Smart testers, when they are asked to do that, run. They run because it's not worth your time, okay? And that's basically it. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, there.